Between 1973 and the end of 1975, Queen recorded 3 groundbreaking albums, delivering hits such as Seven Seas of Rhye, Now I'm Here, Killer Queen, and of course topping the Christmas charts with Bohemian Rhapsody, an extraordinary rise to success over just 2.5 years. However, in this Queen the Greatest special, we explore how none of that would have been possible without the previous 3 years, during which the band overcame a series of seemingly insurmountable challenges to record the first Queen album. By the middle of 1971, Freddie Mercury, Brian May and Roger Taylor had spent a year working hard on writing songs, developing their live act and building the reputation of Queen. And with John Deacon ending the search for the right bass player and completing the lineup, they finally felt ready to make their mark. But financially, things were far from easy.
It was tough in the beginning, yeah. We had John as the sort of final piece of the jigsaw because we'd tried several bass players that hadn't really worked out. We didn't share the same vision, shall we say. We were very poor. We had, no, I mean, it was just hand to mouth. It really was hand to mouth. They call a musician without a girlfriend homeless.
It's really hard to imagine how poor we were, actually, kind of scraping things together. I remember my dad being really shocked when he came. He said, "You're living here, and this is what you do, and this is what you eat." And I was like, "Yeah, Dad, I'm fine. You know, something's going to happen." He said, "You're not putting anything away for the future?" "No, because I haven't got anything to put away."
The band needed a chance to show what they could do, and an opportunity came to record a demo tape at a brand new studio.
We recorded our demo recordings at a studio called Delaney. We were really the test act, the test band or artist, because these were brand new studios built almost next door to Wembley Arena.
The Delaney Studios thing really changed our lives. And it was just because a friend of a friend had got hold of me and said, "Would you like to come in and make a noise so that we can set up our sound insulation and our equipment in this new studio that we're building?" And in return, we got to make those demos.
I mean, we looked on it as precious time in which to establish what we were, you know. To be able to record in a professional studio was a thrill, and it was this, you know, you thought, oh, we're getting somewhere. This is the pathway, you know, and we've got headphones and this, and you can hear this, and you learn all the things about the studio when you're hearing your own voice in the headphones. It's all very strange at first, but you do become accustomed to it. Yeah.
This period in Delaney was really joyous. It's the first time we really got to flex our muscles and put things together, play the backing tracks as we'd been rehearsing them, also do overdubs the way we'd had them in our mind, and build the thing up. It's the first time I ever tried a 3-part guitar solo on Keep Yourself Alive. I'd had it in my brain for a long time, and I wanted to hear this 3-part soaring guitar sound like an orchestra. That's the first time I was able to make it happen.
During that precious recording time, Queen made a demo tape consisting of Keep Yourself Alive, Liar, The Night Comes Down, Great King Rat, and Jesus. And as we can hear, even though it was their first time in a professional studio together, that distinctive Queen sound was already taking shape.
Freddie's very elemental in those days, and he's got all the passion, all the belief, all the vision, but he doesn't have the equipment, you know, he doesn't have the control of his voice at that point. As soon as he's in the studio, he's listening to his takes back, and he's going, "No, I don't like that, that's no good, you know, I can do better." He'd go back in, work on it until it was the way he wanted it to be, and incredibly quickly he picked up the art of recording in a studio and getting the best out of himself. We helped, we were there, we would interact with each other and try and get the best out of each other. This is what we're discovering in Delaney.
Armed with these songs, the band started banging on the doors of record companies.
It's just a little 5-inch reel. And that was it. That was everything we were working up to. It was on that. I remember getting on endless trains with Freddie, hawking them around to all the different record companies. We'd make appointments, and we'd sit in their offices, and they'd just play the stuff, and they were all kind of interested, but nobody actually took the bait, It was just a grind. I wouldn't say it was soul destroying, because we were quite confident, and we had a sort of innate gentle arrogance. We thought we were good and quite different. But yeah, it could have been soul destroying, but we didn't let it get us down too much.
However, there was one person who had seen Queen at Delane Lee and heard the demo tape, who was about to help them take their next massive step.
John Anthony was the guy that really latched on to us. John was very good, and he had been the one who believed in us and saw the potential, I think. He was quite a clever man, John. He'd had odd hits that come out of nowhere. I think he had #1 in America with How Long, with Ace, just out of nowhere. And then he had a massive hit on the continent with Rare Bird and Sympathy, big hit. And then he ended up doing half of Roxy Music's second album. And John he had his finger on the pulse,
John was already involved with Trident Audio Productions as a producer and sort of A&R man, as they were called in those days. When we did our showcase gigs in Imperial College, we invited John both times, and he came, give him credit. And when we were in Delane Lee, he popped in one day with Roy Baker to see how we were doing, to see how the recordings were coming on, and he was obviously impressed. He said, "Oh, this is going to be really great. I'll get you the deal with Trident Audio Productions," who were an embryonic management company. They were already a successful studio recording based in St Anne's Court in Soho.
A lot of hits came out of that studio, George Harrison had come in and do All Things Must Pass, and then David was producing Transformer with Lou Reed, a great album, absolutely groundbreaking, So it was the place to be.
Having signed that management deal with Trident, Queen would be given crucial access to the studio. And in our next episode, Brian and Roger explain how work on Queen's first album could finally begin.